What happens when an entire generation decides to stop chasing the dreams society has laid out for them? What if they just give up? In South Korea, they call it Sampo, a generation that has given up on 3 of life's biggest milestones: dating, marriage, and children. But this isn't just a trend, it's a rebellion, a survival mechanism, a quiet revolution against a system that has left them with no other choice. Imagine working 12-hour days, barely scraping by, while society demands you to keep chasing a dream that feels like a lie. To understand Generation Sampo, we need to go back to where it all began. For decades, South Korea was a society built on tradition, family, hard work, and the promise of a better future. But somewhere along the way, that promise started to crack. In the 20th century, South Korea underwent rapid economic growth, transforming from a war-torn nation into a global powerhouse. This period, known as the Miracle on the Han River, brought unprecedented prosperity. But this success came at a cost: skyrocketing housing prices, relentless competition for jobs, and a culture of long work hours left young people exhausted. Today, South Korea has one of the highest rates of income inequality among developed nations. The cost of living in cities like Seoul is astronomical, with many young people spending more than half their income on rent. At the same time, the job market is fiercely competitive, with long hours and little job security. For many, the dream of a stable career and a comfortable life feels out of reach. For many young people, the traditional milestones of adulthood, finding a partner, buying a home, starting a family, are no longer attainable, and so they've decided to opt out. Take, for instance, the rise of solo living in South Korea. According to recent statistics, over 40% of households in Seoul are single-person households. Many of these are young professionals in their 20s and 30s who cite financial stress and long working hours as reasons for delaying or opting out of relationships and family life. In interviews and surveys, young Koreans often describe feeling trapped in a system that demands too much. One anonymous office worker shared, "I work 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. By the time I get home, I'm too exhausted to even think about dating. And even if I wanted to, how could I afford it?" Many struggle to save for the future, let alone consider starting a family. A 2022 survey found that over 60% of young Koreans believe they won't be able to afford a home in their lifetime, a key factor in their decision to delay marriage and children. But it's not just about money. The cultural pressure to conform to traditional milestones can be overwhelming. In a society where family and social expectations are deeply ingrained, choosing to opt out often comes with criticism and judgment. As one young woman put it, "My parents keep asking me when I'll get married, but they don't understand how much harder it is for us than it was for them." South Korea's birth rate is now the lowest in the world, at just 0.78 children per woman. By 2050, nearly half of all South Koreans will be over 65. This demographic crisis isn't just about numbers. It's about what happens when a society runs out of young people to drive its economy, care for its elderly, and shape its future. With fewer workers to support the elderly, social systems are under immense pressure. Pensions are shrinking, healthcare costs are rising, and young people are being asked to shoulder an ever-growing burden. And that burden's breaking more than just bank accounts. It's shattering the very fabric of Korean culture. Traditional family structures are disappearing, and with them, the values and traditions that have defined Korean society for generations. These real-world insights show that Generation Sampo isn't just a statistic, it's a reflection of the struggles and choices faced by millions of young people. And while their decisions may seem radical to some, they're a logical response to a world that feels increasingly out of reach. But South Korea isn't alone. This is part of a global reckoning. In Japan, herbivore men are shunning romance while the population shrinks so fast that towns are paying families to move in. In China, the lying flat movement rejects hustle culture as only children strain to support aging parents after decades of the one-child policy. And in Europe, declining birth rates and rising single-person households are forcing a rethink of immigration and welfare systems. Generation Sampo isn't just a Korean story, it's a global trend shaking the foundations of modern society. Experts also weigh in on this trend. Sociologist Dr. Kim Hye-jin explains explains, the Sampo generation isn't lazy or selfish. They're responding rationally to a system that no longer works for them. When the cost of living is so high and the job market so unstable, it's no wonder young people are rethinking their priorities. But not everyone sees Generation Sampo as a crisis. For some, it's a sign of progress, a rejection of outdated norms, and a step toward a more individualistic, self-determined way of life. After all, why should young people be forced into a mold that no longer fits? Why should they sacrifice their dreams, their careers, and their mental health for a system that doesn't support them? And then there's the argument that Generation Sampo isn't the problem, it's a symptom of a society that prioritizes economic growth over human well-being, that values tradition over innovation, and that has failed to adapt to the realities of modern life. For many young people, opting out isn't about giving up. It's about reclaiming their lives. It's about saying no to a system that demands too much and gives too little. And it's about finding new ways to define success, happiness, and belonging. So, what is Generation Sampo? A warning sign flashing red for societies worldwide, signaling the cracks in systems that no longer serve us, or a bold blueprint for reimagining what it means to live a good life? It's both and it's neither. It's a wake-up call, a demand for change, a refusal to accept a future where well-being is sacrificed for wealth or purpose is traded for prestige. Not everyone's ready to ditch the old dream, but for those who are, this is their fight. The future isn't some distant dream. It's being shaped right now in the choices we all make. Generation Sampo isn't giving up. They're fighting for something better, painting a new picture of what life could be. The question is, will we cling to the old ways that stifle them, or will we pick up the brush and join them in building a world where success means freedom, not just to survive, but to thrive? That's the future we're deciding. What kind of world do we want to hand over?